So instead I decided that I would tell you guys a story about how I almost, quote, almost, got married once. So I was going home on the bus. This was an everyday thing. I always did this with my best friend. He was a guy, and so we had known each other for about a year. And so we went on the bus together. We were sitting next to each other, and we went over a bump. And you know how when you go over a bump, like your head almost like hits the ceiling of the bus? Yeah. So we went over a bump, and he's like, "Hey, you dropped something." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Like, what did I drop?" Anyways, I bent down to pick it up because once something rolls to the back of the bus, you are never seeing that item again. Like, never. It's gone forever down the portal that is the end of the bus. So I bent down to pick it up, and as I'm looking for this item, I'm like, okay, there's nothing here. There's nothing here. I didn't drop anything. And so I get back up, and I'm like, there's nothing here. He's like, no, just keep looking, just keep looking. I'm like, okay. So I bent down again, and I'm looking, and you know, all the disgusting gum underneath the chairs and everything. It's not fun down there. Anyways, I get back up, and I'm like, there is still nothing under there. You're lying. And as I'm getting back into my chair, he kisses me. And I have my Disney princess fairy tale moment. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get married, like tomorrow. I need a dress and flowers and a cake. And so the following week, there's actually a dance. And I'm like, Cinderella, actually, like I get to wear a dress and do my hair and everything. So we go to this dance, of course, together, and we're hanging and we're chilling. We're having a good time. And I go and I get a drink of water, because, you know, you're dancing, you get thirsty, you're sweating. So I go and I grab a drink, and when I come back, this man's is dancing with somebody else. After he had just kissed me. It's not even like I approached him. He kissed me and then has the audacity to go and dance with another girl. And he stays with her the entire night. And I am hurt. I'm absolutely broken. But there's something I forgot to tell you about this story. It all happened in kindergarten. So today we are talking about Numbers 14, verses 1 to 4. So the verse is up there, and I've been told that you guys do respond to highlighted words, that you will read them. So I'm not saying anything. You're just going to shout it out, okay? Here we go. That night, all the members of the community raised their voices and wept out loud. All the Israelites against Moses and Aaron, and the whole assembly said to them, "If only we had died in or in this wilderness. Is the Lord bringing us into this land only to let us fall by the sword? Our wives and our children will be taken as plunder. Wouldn't it be better for us to go back to
Egypt?"
And they said to each other, "We should
choose
a leader and go back to
Egypt."
And again, no one said the Numbers part. I don't know what it is. It is highlighted. I would like to point out. It's okay, guys. I forgive you. It is from Numbers 14, verse 1 to 4. And we're going to pray quickly, so bow your heads, close your eyes. God, thank you for today. Thank you that we can come together. I just ask that you would, I know that you're here, that you would continue to be here, that your presence would be felt, that you would open our ears to hear and open our hearts to receive, and that you would just touch me, that my words wouldn't be my own, God, but that they would be from you. Amen. So, I have a question. Has anyone ever walked into a test or an exam or had a project and you were like 99.999999% sure you weren't going to pass? Hands up. Hands up. It's okay. It's okay. You didn't have time to study, or you completely forgot to study, and you're just praying that you know enough to get through. Or have you ever finished a presentation as the person before you is presenting? Because I know some of you are sitting there and you're typing fast and furious, right? Because you know you're next, but your presentation isn't done. So you're just trying. You're trying to get it done. But there's also some of us who are like, "Nah, Courtney, I'm organized. My stuff is done a week in advance. Like, you don't know. I'm so organized. I have color-coordinated notes with specific sticky notes." So my question to those people is, have you ever poured your blood, sweat, and tears into a project and gotten a mark and been completely disappointed? I have. I know that I've definitely put in a lot of work into something and been like, there's a mistake. They did something wrong. They put the wrong marking because I deserve a better mark than this. And see, we've all been hurt before, and maybe it wasn't your kindergarten crush who broke your heart, or maybe it wasn't a bad mark, but we've all been hurt before, and hurt comes in many different forms. Maybe you've been insulted, maybe you've been gossiped about, maybe you've been lied to, and there's a long, long list of hurts. And let's just be honest, being hurt sucks. That's the only word that I could think of to describe it, really. I was like, what's one word to describe how it feels to be hurt? It just sucks, right? It's got that sucky, disgusting, gross feeling. And the Israelites in Numbers 14 feel hurt. They are crying and grumbling because they are hurt. They feel abandoned by God, that He has left them to die. They had certain expectations of what their life was supposed to look like after they left Egypt, and they are really disappointed. They're so disappointed that they're like, let's go back to Egypt. And for some of you who maybe aren't so familiar or haven't read this story in a while, in Egypt, they were slaves. So they're so disappointed that they're like, let's go back to slavery. Let's do that again. So I have a theory that everyone in this room has either felt abandoned or been let down by expectations. Now, you might not find yourself literally abandoned in a desert like the Israelites, but I know that there's someone in this room who feels like God isn't answering your prayers. You feel like He's left you, that He doesn't care. I know there's someone in this room who feels alone even though they're surrounded by people right now. I know there's someone who probably feels unworthy of love, someone who has been rejected, someone who has been ignored. And sometimes it's not abandonment that gets us. Sometimes it's expectations. You see, a few weeks ago, I had a hub worship practice, and I showed up, and I had this thought, these expectations for myself, that I thought everyone else thinks I have to be perfect. I have to sing every single note perfectly, have to get all the harmonies. I thought their expectations were up here. But in reality, they were probably about here. Normal human being, voice may crack, may sing some wrong notes. But I left that practice completely defeated and hurt, not because of other people's expectations, but because of my own. So let's dig a little deeper. Why are the Israelites so hurt when we read Numbers 14? See, the Israelites, God's people, have already left Egypt, and in the book of Numbers, we read about their journey from Mount Sinai to the plains of Moab, which borders Canaan. And they know they've been promised a land, and that land is Canaan. And so they know they can't just show up, plant a flag, and be like, we're here now, clear out. Because, and the other side would be like, oh, okay, I'll be out in like 5 minutes, just let me pack up my tent and I'll be out of your way. They can't just do that. There will be a full-out war if they just show up and try and plant a flag, right? So they send 12 spies to just go check it out for 40 days, just to go see what's going on in the land of Canaan. And so they come back, but they come back with two completely different reports, two completely different perspectives. They did not get their story straight beforehand. You see, they come back and 10 say, Canaan's pretty cool. It's got milk, it's got honey, but it's also got these people, and they're bigger than us. They're stronger than us. Their cities are fortified, they're armed, they're ready to just kill us the second that they see us. They were like, we look so small, we look like grasshoppers. They're literally just gonna squash us. And 2 come back, and they're like, let's go. And the Israelites are like, whoa, 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 whoa. What? Let's go. Did you not just hear what those 10 said? Why are you 2 saying, let's go? What's going on here? So the Israelites are listening to these 2 perspectives, right? And they're like, so God has sent us on a suicidal mission? We're supposed to take Canaan from these people who are bigger and stronger than us? They feel hurt, they feel let down that God has left them out to dry. And see, hurt experiences put us into a cycle. We feel hurt, we feel like God has abandoned us, and that leads to unbelief. We doubt God's promises. And the Israelites, they doubted that God had actually promised them Canaan when they saw the people there. And see, that led to discouragement. They felt defeated, they felt disappointed, which led to poor choices. They choose to ignore the 2 voices that said, let's do it. They actually wanted to kill these people. They were like, let's just stone them to death. Let's just ignore them altogether. Let's just eliminate their opinion. And that leads to more hurt, because spoiler alert, they don't get to enter the promised land. And this extends to us. We feel upset with God. He didn't answer our prayer. He didn't answer the way we wanted him to. We feel like he's gone silent, that he doesn't care. We see what's going on in the world around us and we're like, God's just not there. Which leads to us doubting God. We doubt his goodness. We doubt whether or not he's just. We doubt if he exists. We doubt if he actually cares. And we feel helpless. And that leads us to feeling discouraged. We talk negatively about ourselves. We start to believe what others say. We start to believe what the enemy says, which leads to poor choices. We stop praying. We stop reading our Bibles. We stop going to church. We don't want to talk to our Christian friends because we're like, I don't want to hear someone just tell me to pray about it. I don't want to deal with that. Which leads us to more hurt because we end up making decisions that ultimately hurt us because we are ignoring God. And this isn't the first time the Israelites struggled with unbelief. See, in Exodus 14, they get to the Red Sea, and in front of them, they see the water. And behind them, they see Egyptians coming with swords. They're like, so dying by drowning or dying by sword? This is lovely. Why did we leave Egypt again? Can anybody tell us? Why are we here? We're just gonna die out here. They feel like God has completely abandoned them and left them out to die. In Exodus 16, the Israelites are hungry, or should I say hangry. They're more hangry than hungry. You know, you've seen that commercial, hangry? Yeah, they're there and they're complaining because they're like, we're hungry. In Egypt, we had food. God, where's the food? What's going on? They feel disappointed. They feel let down by expectations. They feel, again, like God has abandoned them. He's not providing. In Exodus 17, the Israelites are thirsty. And again, they say, why didn't we just stay in Egypt? In Egypt, we have food. In Egypt, we have water. So they feel hurt. They want to go back to Egypt. They feel abandoned. But in all of these stories, yes, the Israelites grumble. Yes, they complain. But in all of these stories, God also does something miraculous because just one person has just a little bit of faith. See, we've all had experiences. We've all been hurt before. Maybe we've had different points in our lives where we felt like God was hurting us, not helping us. But remember those two different reports, the 10 and the 2. See, all 12 spies went to Canaan, the same Canaan. They saw the same people, they saw the same cities, but the 10 said, it can't be done, and the 2 said, let's go. And at the Red Sea, Moses sees an opportunity, and the Israelites see death. So how come you see your situation, and you feel like giving up on God, but he sees your situation, and he says, just trust me. It's all about perspective. Does anybody know what pleases God? It starts with an F, ends in an 8. That's right, faith. So the leaders are actually going to hand out, there are some envelopes at the back, they're going to hand them out to you guys. Inside is the verse, Matthew 17:20. And I'm just going to read it for you guys. It says, for truly I say to you, if you have faith like a grain of a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you. A few years ago, Pastor Brandon preached a sermon, and he gave us these little containers full of mustard seeds. And on the front, it said Matthew 17:20. And this is such a great reminder that we don't have to have a lot of faith. We just have to have our faith in the right person. We just have to have faith in a God who can do the impossible, right? So, if you want to get out of the cycle of hurt, of abandonment, of unbelief, of letdown expectations, maybe it's just time for a new perspective, a little bit of faith. In those cards, you'll find the verse and you'll find the mustard seed, and I'll tell you in a second what I want you guys to do with the pencils. Because there are some of you who are so close to receiving a blessing, a miracle. You are so close to the other side of a storm, of a valley. You are so close to seeing God move in your life, but your unbelief is holding you back. See, the Israelites, they were so close to the promised land. They were so close to Canaan. They were literally on the border, but it was their unbelief that didn't allow them to enter. And unbelief diminishes our perspective. Have you guys ever seen those horses that have like the black patches near their eyes, the blinders? It only allows them to see what's in front of them. And that's kind of what unbelief does. It kind of blocks us from seeing what's going on around us and only lets us see what's happening right in front of us. And so we stop believing God's promises. We forget that He hasn't left us or forsaken us. We stop thinking He will provide, that He will comfort. We start to think that He doesn't care. And that's all the Israelites could see, right? They had those blinders on. All they could see was death and destruction. They couldn't see that God had a plan. They doubted God's power and His control, and they didn't trust that He would keep His promise. But Joshua and Caleb, the two, had a different perspective. They had just a little bit of faith at the border of Canaan. They believed God's promise. They knew that God hadn't left them. They knew that God would make a way. So the question is, are you going to be the 10 or are you going to be the 2? Are you going to walk by faith or are you going to walk by unbelief? Are you going to live with a diminished perspective of only seeing what's going on and thinking, man, this is the end of the world? Or are you going to let God have your perspective and be able to see, wow, God's trying to do something. I might not be able to see it, but look, God has a plan. He has a purpose. And so I want you guys to just take a moment and write on those cards an area in your life where you need a little bit of faith. Or maybe you guys have some anger and resentment towards God. It's been a wacky few years, let's just be honest. And some of us, we might be harboring some anger, some frustration towards God. And if that's you, I just want you guys to write a sentence and be like, God, this is how I'm feeling. And it's okay if you're feeling upset. That is okay. But what we're going to do is we're going to pray that God would help us with our hurt and our frustration, that He would give us a new perspective. We're also going to pray for a little bit of faith. So I want you guys to just take a few minutes to just think, to reflect, and to write on the back of those cards, okay? Okay, so I'm going to give you guys some homework. I'm sorry, I apologize. But I want to give you some homework because I think that this is really important when it comes to unbelief, and it's prayer. But I want to tell you a specific story and then why I want you to pray it. So the prayer I want you to pray is, I do believe, but help me overcome my unbelief. And the reason I want you guys to pray this is because in Mark chapter 9, verse 24, is the story of the man, the father, who brings his son who is demon-possessed to Jesus. And he says, Jesus, if you can you heal him? And Jesus is like, if I can? And the man's like, I do believe, but help me overcome my unbelief. And that's a prayer that I have been praying. That one line is something that I've been praying over my life because I know that the past year, the past 2 years has been tough for me. I've struggled where I felt like there were moments where God had abandoned me. I felt like I was talking to a wall. Some days I was praying and I was like, I don't know if God's listening. I don't know if He cares. And I was looking at what was going on around me and my expectations I felt were being let down because I was like, God, this is my grade 12 year. I want a graduation, I want a prom, and none of these things were happening and I just felt let down. I felt abandoned. I was going through a hard season where I was struggling with my faith because I was like, I don't know if I believe that God's actually hearing me. And so when I looked at this story, this is the story that God had placed on my heart, and He said, just pray that. He was like, just pray that. I do believe, but help me overcome my unbelief. And that's what I've been praying. I've been asking God for just a little bit of faith. And sometimes I pray that several times a day. Sometimes I pray it once a week. It depends. But I encourage you guys, whatever it is that you guys just wrote on your cards, to start praying that at home over yourself. I do believe, but help me overcome my unbelief. Whatever area in your life where that unbelief is, that you would just ask God, God, give me faith. I want to see this mountain move. I want to see this this Red Sea part. God, I'm going through this storm. I don't know if you're there. Give me faith that I can make it through. Give me faith that you're still here, that you're still with me, that you still love me. So we're just going to pray right now. We're just going to wrap it up. And we're going to just ask God for a new perspective and a little bit of faith. God, thank you that you are so good. Thank you, God, that you do move mountains. Thank you that you are powerful and that you will see us through, that you are good, that your promises, you are faithful to keep them. I just ask, God, for those of us who might have a little bit of unbelief in our life, God, that you would help us to overcome it, that you would give us the strength, that you would help us to tear off those blinders of unbelief, and that we would be able to see what it is that you are trying to do. That you would just give us a little bit of faith through the storm, that we would know that you are there, that you love us, that you care, that you're still listening, and that, God, you would just give us a new perspective. That you would allow us to see what it is that you're trying to do, because there is a purpose. I just ask that you would just be with every single one of these students. It's been a hard 2 years, and I just ask, God, that you would help them, because some of us, our faith is running on empty, and our unbelief is creeping in. And I just ask, God, that you would just supply us with a little bit of faith today. Faith as small as a mustard seed, because that's all we need, God. Because you are bigger and you are stronger. And it doesn't matter how big our faith is, because you are big and you are strong and you can do the impossible. Just keep us all safe and healthy and help us to have amazing weeks.